What does this current outlook show us? Does it tell anything when the post-COVID period comes, the time that we are all waiting so impatiently for?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. We are still in a race between the virus and the vaccine. And this race has been exacerbated by the second wave of the coronavirus that has affected many countries in the world. We expect that 2021 will witness a recovery. The recovery, though, it's going to be different between countries. Those who have the capacity to withstand the policy response and provide additional support to their economy will be able to recover faster. In terms of 2021, also, the uncertainty will remain high because we don't know to which extent a risk of a third wave is real or not.
What has changed from the last outlook to this outlook, and do we see at least some certainties along the way?
Two things have emerged. One is the reality of the vaccine. I think this is a very positive development, and the diversity of the vaccine sources. But also we had a second wave that was even deeper than the first one. However, countries have developed new methods of dealing with the second wave. I think 2021 is a year of transition. Several countries will see their economy bouncing back. Some of them will not recoup and recover the level of economic activity that they had pre-COVID. This crisis has also highlighted some weaknesses, and I would like to highlight three. One is the social. Certain countries had challenges dealing with the level of informality, providing access to social protection to those who are not included in economic activities. This is one. The second important development, that policies matter. And we saw countries who have developed policy responses were able to recover faster. And three, institutions are also very important, and the trust of citizen institution was one important factor to provide the level of assurance for citizens to accelerate the level of vaccination and to respect the rules.
Let me go quote by quote to some of the what it seemed to me that is important. One, you say that countries who have put in place stronger fiscal responses to COVID-19 are also expected to have a stronger recovery in 2021. What does a stronger fiscal response mean in this context? Is it just like spending debt or taxpayers' money, or is there more to how the government managed this process of pandemic?
Well, I would say here three things were important. One is to provide targeted and timely support to people in their livelihood and certain activities that were more affected than others. And certain countries, like for example in Georgia, Armenia, and other countries, tourism is an important sector, and therefore providing support to those sectors heavily affected by the crisis was important. In addition to that, central banks played an important role in addressing the crisis by providing liquidity, adjusting interest rates, and also making sure that the financial system is sound. I would say also what was important is recognizing that this crisis is an opportunity too. It's an opportunity to address long-lasting issues. For example, in certain countries, productivity was low, and therefore investing in accelerating the recovery in sectors where growth is potential is bigger was also important. Addressing some of the shortages in terms of infrastructure in other countries was important too. And three is also to embrace what this crisis has showed as acceleration. Technology was clearly an area where countries need to invest further in order to accelerate. Environment too is an avenue for accelerating the recovery, and creating new job of opportunities. Therefore, I think we are now in a situation where it's very important to keep the focus on protecting lives, but also it's as important to think of what the economy will look like after this crisis.
When and how should the economies be opened up? And don't you think that this policy of virus containment with lockdowns cannot be sustainable in the long term?
The vaccine will be the solution, and this is why we are recommending to all our member countries, and especially in the region, to accelerate the vaccination. Because the vaccination will protect lives, but also will allow the economy to recover faster. Our analysis is showing that you can even increase the level of recovery by accelerating the vaccination. Therefore, vaccine is very important. Providing a vaccine and also making sure that you have a diversity of sources of vaccination. This is I would say, the starting point. The second important point is to make sure that you don't withdraw the policy support fast. And by doing so is, in fact, to abruptly reduce the level of recovery. And three, I think, is also by investing in some of the important enablers. Education has proven to be very much dependent on technology going forward, as well as also logistics, and therefore investing on technology, improving the quality of education, increasing productivity is going to be very important for various countries in the region too.
Balancing between supporting the recovery and debt sustainability will be challenging for the region, given that fiscal space is limited and consolidation will need to resume in 2021 for numerous countries. Is Georgia among these countries as well?
Georgia has implemented over the past years certain number of important reforms that allowed the economy to withstand an important shock and to be able to respond quickly. The government introduced fiscal measures, as well as also the central bank did the same. The reforms that were introduced in the last 5 years proved to be the right ones because they helped the economy to withstand a very important shock. Let's not forget that Georgia is an open economy where tourism and certain number of activities are important, and those activities were affected by the crisis.
Another quote from this outlook is that in countries with flexible currencies, the exchange rate should continue to act as a buffer when needed. Please elaborate a little bit. And does this mean that central bank should not, or should it or should not sell reserves in order to stabilize the currency to some extent, because Georgia is a highly dollarized country, and we have talked a lot about it in other interviews as well. And this puts additional pressure on exchange rate and then on prices.
Well, the strength of the policies matter, and this is one of the lessons of this crisis. And countries who have the capacity to use multiple policy instruments should do this. And therefore, fiscal monetary exchange rate are to be used in order, A, to preserve the stability and absorb and amortize part of the shock, but also to respond. Providing fiscal support, providing liquidity to the system, adjusting the interest rates are all steps in the right direction. And of course, when you have a flexible exchange rate, the flexibility of the exchange rate will allow you or allows you to reduce the impact of the external shock on your economy. Of course, this crisis is evolving, and with time, you adjust those instruments. And you make sure that you preserve inflation at a low level. You allow the economy to get access to the liquidity that is needed to finance the recovery. And you make sure that certain sectors that are more affected than others are supported. Of course, nothing better in this case than a regain of demand and the recovery in the global economy. And this is something that the vaccination will help accelerate, as well as also making sure that the economy is ready to attract investment. And this is the direction of policies that we are recommending to Georgia. And those are the policies that we need to develop, especially that we are in an uncertain moment. Of course, the economy is recovering, but the level of uncertainty remains high. And this is why it's very important to remain vigilant.
Yes, and President of the National Bank of Georgia told me in our interview that at this point the outlook is that the monetary policy will be remaining on the more tightened territory rather than considering easing the monetary policy to boost economy and to support economy in that way. I would like to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Again, I think the mix of policy makes a big difference. And in the case of Georgia, we saw both the central bank and the government acting in synchronized way to address the crisis and also to accompany the economy throughout. Where we stand today is at a turning point. We need to accelerate vaccination, and therefore fiscal resources need to be dedicated to that. We need to maintain the support to certain sectors and groups of the population that were affected by the crisis until we see that there is a need or there is no need for that going forward. 3, we need to maintain the liquidity in the system and keep inflation under control. And this is what the central bank is doing. And last but not the least, we need to accelerate the recovery and invest in the future.
What should be done with tourism? We mentioned Georgia's dependency. UNWTO is talking about having some kind of like a one pass for the travelers, some kind of app maybe that would try to help to control and contain this. What is your take on that? What are some solutions on this sector?
Well, there is the immediate need to provide support to a kind of a flooring to those activities, especially the small and medium-sized companies. But I think what will help is with the acceleration of the vaccination, you will be able to resume normal economic activities, including in tourism. Therefore, investing in the vaccination, investing in making sure that this second wave of the pandemic is under control will help to accelerate the process of recovery and will help to bring again this sector back to what it was.
And my last question to you, what can you tell us about more specifically about Georgia's economy and outlook for Georgia's economic growth?
Well, as you know, Georgia has suffered in 2020, and we expect the economy to recover at 4.3% next year. And this recovery will be sustained over the medium term. In 2022, we expect the economy to grow at 5.8%. Of course, this will allow Georgia to regain the level of growth and economic activity pre-crisis. And hopefully with the next wave of reforms, with the economy will recoup the ground lost because of the crisis and regain its full potential in the medium term.
We are BMG. Follow and subscribe for business and economics news.